It's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your Energy and Ascension Forecast for Sunday, May 21st to Saturday, May 27th. So last week was a pretty busy week. Of course, we came into the week looking to wrap up not only eclipse season, but Taurus season in its entirety. We had a lot of moving parts, starting with Mercury, of course, ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information and communication, finally going direct. That took place on the 14th. And so we have been seeing a sudden jolt, a sudden shifting, if you will, in our thoughts, in our focus, in our perception and understanding, and in our ideas. Now, Mercury, still very much in its post-shadow period up until we enter into June, is definitely pushing for us to focus on what it is that we want to bring to life. Again, in that Taurus energy, it's about creation. It's about form. It's about structure. It's about safety, security, happiness, and joy. And of course, the Mercury retrograde would have illuminated for us what kind of details in our physical realms and our circumstances we've built that we're no longer in alignment with. And of course, many of us seen some of those structures fall apart, get kind of shook up into a new form. There should have been illumination on what it is that we have to let go of in order to create a space to build something new in its place. But because Mercury isn't at its top tier, fullest speed, we're still kind of piecing those particular puzzle pieces together. We're making a lot of sense out of things. It's just not coming as fast as we would like. And again, Mercury's in that Taurus energy. So we have to expect things to be very low, very slow, but very steady at the same time. We had Jupiter, the planet of growth, expansion, beliefs, abundance, blessings, moving out of that fiery Aries energy, which was literally the only fire energy that we had going on in the cosmos for a very long time, and moving into Taurus energy. So that took place on the 16th. Well, that is when time stood still. That is when we seen a ripple effect in this accelerated time warp series that we've been in. And that is when we started to become very, very present in our physical bodies, very present in our physical circumstances, and for good reason. That Taurus energy, a fixed earth sign, has us connected to the five senses, to the physical realm of our egoic experiences, and Jupiter is here for the next year to grow, to expand on what it is that we're building, what it is that we're creating in our physical realms, so that we can essentially create a life, a circumstance that not only looks good, but that feels good too, really getting back to the basic needs of what it is that we want, need, and desire to make us feel safe and secure and happy and joyful in our lives. But we got off to a very abrupt start, just where we were in that eclipse energy for as long as we were on fast forward, and then Jupiter hit that Taurus energy, and then it was like, bam, we had to stop for a second, really slow the roll. And of course, the energies that came with that particular shift were very, very palpable. We've seen that with the CMEs, with the solar flares that popped off on the Schumann Resonance. And of course, we continued this very interesting energetic ride with the new moon in Taurus. So if you're listening to me Friday evening, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. Secondly, we just had the new moon in Taurus reach its peak energy midday. So this new moon in Taurus, of course, I would hope that you have already listened to the Astro Forecast. I would have hoped that you already downloaded your moon guide in preparation for this, I'm going to say, new moon regular Taurus energy ritual that you should be planning for just after you listen to this forecast. Of course, we want to take advantage of the new moon energy. We do have a 3-day window prior to and post moon event, but you should definitely aim to be doing it when the energy is at its peak and its most potent. So this new moon in Taurus is quite a situation for us. An overabundance of this earth energy has us kind of slamming into a brick wall, if you will. Now, I talked about this a couple of times in previous forecasts. I'm going to talk about it again, because what we have to understand is that we have been operating from a fragmented sense of self. What does that mean? Well, our bodies are just going through the autopilot natural order of moving through this physical realm. Our mind space has been absolutely accelerated and warped, not only with the retrograde, but with eclipse season as well. And our soul space has been evolving, growing in nature, reaching new levels of awareness, reaching new levels of vibration and frequency. So we've been operating on three very different planes. And again, your physical body is terrestrial. It basically belongs to the earth. Your mind space is kind of, I'm going to say, extraterrestrial, because we can visit different lands in our minds that we've never really been before. We can leave this earth realm at any point and kind of project ourselves in a different realm of existence. So it's extraterrestrial because we're able to leave this physical form and physical earth. And of course, our heart space, our soul space is celestial in nature, because we can kind of transcend the mind space, the focus of the mind, and we can connect to unity consciousness, to all the vibrations and frequencies of other realms. So the new moon in Taurus is like us hitting a brick wall. And I know that doesn't sound pleasant, but it's needed. We need to kind of have this jolt where, the physical body, the mental plane, the soul space all hit this very solid wall and compact, shoving all parts of self back into the physical form. Is it going to feel good? Probably not. Our soul self has expanded to new levels of awareness, of vibration, of frequency, and to shove all of that energy back into these meat suits, it's going to be very uncomfortable. We are going to need a little bit of time to adjust, to acclimate to this new sense of being. And for the first time in a long time, we are operating as a whole, complete self. Problem is, we've never met this version of ourselves before. So this is a reintroduction, if you will, on the parts of us that have remained the same, anchored into our programming, while really kind of taking it in on the parts of ourselves that aren't alive and well anymore. The parts of self that got eliminated, that got, I'm going to say, evolved into a higher state. Therefore, this is why we need a little bit of time to kind of get our bearings, to bring it all in, to see where it is that we're at. And as if that wasn't enough, we still have Mars yet to lead this Cancer energy. It's at its final degrees here today, Friday, and we will see Mars enter into Leo energy here tomorrow on the 20th. So I'm very excited about this. Again, I'm hoping that you listen to the Astra Forecast. I'm hoping that if you had downloaded the Taurus season e-guide, that you would be kind of at the end of your work booklet right now, trying to encapsulate the energy shift that is going to take place in our physical body, in our physical form, in our heart space, in our passions, in our desires. Things are about to get a little bit interesting because Mars hasn't been able to take action in a very long time. Even more than that, Mars hasn't been able to identify anything excitable enough to actually make a move to break free of the old constructs in order to put ourselves out there in a bold, brave, courageous kind of way in order to have a new pursuit of happiness. And we are about to do just that in this Leo energy. But let me just tell you, we're not getting off to the kind of start in which we would like. And I'm going to tell you why. This brings us into this week. There's a reason for it. The reason for it is that, first of all, we're wrapping up the last week of May here. So, May's whole vibration, frequency, life lesson. Go back, listen to the May energy forecast if you need a refresher on what it is that you were supposed to be learning in the month of May. But we enter into Gemini season, my friends. Okay, so the 21st. Now, if we're looking at things, we have bam, bam, bam events taking place. Gemini season is an air energy. We move into the mental plane. We're all about information and knowledge. Things are changing. We're going to be presented with new information and details that are going to have us positioned to have to decide, to have to choose. And the reason why we're not getting off to the kind of start in which we would hope, especially with Mars moving into Leo, is because we're A, still under the influence of the new moon in Taurus while the sun shifts into Gemini season. B, overabundance of earth energies is still very much keeping us grounded, keeping us kind of at a standstill in order for us to get our bearings. And C, well, Jupiter, right? He is weighing us down in this Taurus energy. So the growth that we will be doing has to be thought about while we're standing still, while we're being present. So this is definitely going to have an impact on the ascension symptoms for this week, but I'm not going to jump into that just yet. The other thing that we have going on this week is that we approach the first quarter moon in Virgo energy on the 27th. Why do we love this? Well, couple of reasons. First of all, when Gemini season kicks off, Venus steps down from her throne because, of course, she's the ruler of Taurus season. Mercury takes that control, takes that power. What do we know about Mercury? Well, we know that he's not up to snuff yet. We know that he is not at his strongest power yet, because he's in his post-shadow period. He's not far from being at his best self. He will clear that post-shadow period on the 1st, but he's basically taking the throne, taking the place of power without him being at his strongest self. So there's a little bit of a dynamic kind of happening here because physically speaking, our bodies need to stand still. We do need a certain, I'm going to say, state of paralysis in order for us to kind of gauge what is going on here. But our mental plane is going to be rapid firing, trying to make sense of everything, trying to kind of pull the pieces of the past into the present moment, trying to gain our bearings and understanding of where it is that we're at in the here and now. And of course, we are planning and strategizing on what it is that we want to do in moving forward. But Mars and Leo, that heart space, that physicality, just wanting to push forward and be straightforward and going after what it is that we want, we have some thinking to do. And that is likely going to frustrate Mars just a tad. But when we get to the first quarter moon in Virgo, who rules over Virgo energy? That's right, Mr. Mercury does. Virgo is an earth energy, so again, adding to the overabundance of earth that we currently have going on in the cosmos as of right now. But being ruled over by Mercury, again, you'll often hear me say with Virgo energy, we have the ability to really tap into the whole mind over matter thing. Why is that important? Well, because things have to happen in our mind. We have to have a visualization before it is that we can take action and actually bring things into form, bring things to life, create new possibilities. But even more than that, what I love is that the first quarter moon gives us a time to see what actions, what decisions we have to initiate in order to kind of bring forth the validation to ourselves, to the universe, that this is the path that I want to explore. This is the choice that I'm going to make and see what happens. These are the details and informations that I'm going to allow to lead me into the pursuit of more knowledge, more wisdom. So the Virgo energy is a fixer. It's the problem solver of the zodiac. We are definitely in the mental plane, focused in on the smaller details of our inner realm, of the choices available to us, of the path that we want to pursue in moving forward. There's a lot going on in that mental plane, but even more than that, we're coming up with solutions. There will be a certain sense of clarity and certainty that will dawn on us with the first quarter moon in Virgo. That's the initiation stage of kind of saying, okay, I've sorted through the information, the details, I know the choices available to me. I'm going to lean in this particular direction, experiment, take it so far until I'm told not to go any further with it, and see what happens. So we are definitely going to start getting little blurbs of insight, little pieces of the puzzle, little details just come out of nowhere to help us feel informed enough to actually make the decisions, the choices, the path, the direction choices that we need to be making. And a lot of that realization will come with the first quarter moon that is at the very end of May that ushers us into June. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, you may remember this past week when Jupiter actually entered into Taurus energy at the 0 degree, we started a very tight square with Pluto, who was at the 0 degree retrograde, of course, in this Aquarian energy. I hate to repeat myself, but I feel like I'm going to do it again. This puts us in a situation where there is this impulse, this restlessness, this urgency, this semi-crisis point where we feel like we have to make the decisions now. The tension that comes out of a square is for us to see what is opposing us, what is blocking us, what is challenging us. There's this underlying, I'm going to say, impulse to just choose and decide so that we can get the party started. However, if you make a decision before the end of the first week of June, technically just the first week of June period, you are likely going to have a lot of revisions and reviews needing to be made, and maybe even, kibosh that whole idea, that whole project altogether and start fresh when June offers us a different perspective. We need to hold off in resisting the impulse, the crisis, the urgency that we're feeling in order to initiate something new until Jupiter and Pluto can kind of lay off of each other. Even more than that, Mars is in opposition with Pluto as we speak. We have the god of war and the god of the underworld at each other's throats right now. What are they trying to accomplish? Well, Pluto wants a great transformation. Mars wants to take action. So you would think that that would be a copacetic arrangement that they could work together. But here's the problem. Pluto's retrograde, which means that we don't have the mental dexterity, the clarity, the confidence, the self-esteem at the moment to actually go ahead and pursue what it is that Mars wants to take action on. Pluto being retrograde takes us into our psyche, into the programming, into the conditioning, and shows us where it is that we have limiting beliefs on what it is that we think is actually possible. So we have Mars, which is very egoic based, very identity based, very 3D based, rearing to go in order to really take charge and take the leadership role on going after what it is that our heart wants us to pursue. Again, Leo energy, heart and soul of the zodiac. While Pluto understands that if you take action right now without the, I'm going to say, mental narrative that is in alignment with the actions that you're looking to take, you're setting yourself up for failure. So we have a little bit of time right now, and this is why I say the physical body needs to stand still while the inner realm needs to be rapidly processing new perspectives, ideas, and information. We have an opportunity right now to get our mind right. Okay? And we don't want to force this issue. It might feel like we should be forcing this issue and taking action and being a little bit more spontaneous and committing and deciding. That would be the wrong thing to do right now. We need to move into June. Okay, the very, not that I want to get into June's forecast right now, but we start June 1st off with a very, very powerful aspect. What is that, you may ask? Well, Jupiter, fresh in this Taurus energy, is going to come up to bump into, conjunct, team up with the North Node. That's our soul path. That's our destiny point. The planet of growth and expansion is going to be meeting up with our soul path, our soul's destiny, our soul's potential. You best believe that that is going to reveal a different possibility, different course of action, different plan altogether. If we go ahead and give in to the urgency, the crisis point, if you will, the pressurized situation that we're currently in to take action, to decide, to make a choice, we are going to be uneducated, uninformed, and totally blindsided when the new vision, the new opportunities get unveiled to us in the first week of June. So that is why we have to resist the temptation of our physical flesh meat suits, which wants to take action, which wants to decide, which wants to move forward. And we have to just vibe in this very unique window of opportunity to stay as calm, as present, as paralyzed as possible here in the physical form, and let our inner realm do its thing. We will absolutely know when is the right time to take action, to make a move, to make a decision, and it is not that far off. We just have this week to get through before new insights are available to us, new opportunities, new paths, new decision, new information, and then we can make an informed decision and actually take a step moving forward in the first week of June. So that is your cautionary note. Okay, so that kind of covers the astrology. There's a lot going on, guys. So if you're feeling, a little bit all over the place and discombobulated and don't know if you're coming or going, congratulations, you're exactly where it is that you need to be. Confusion is part of the process, and we are definitely sorting things out a lot slower than many of us would prefer, but we are figuring things out. And again, as we move through this week and kind of, shift into a different mind space, we're going to be seeing things very, very differently. So I'm going to encourage you to have the patience that not very many of us were born with. And unfortunately for us, we have been unable to locate how to buy patience on the interweb. So let's cover a couple of homework things before I can jump into the Ascension symptoms for this week. And as you may know, I always just want to start off with a thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time and energy here with us in the chat. And if you're not in the chat, thank you for just stumbling across my page and leaving a little bit of a note to know that you were here, that you're a part of this community, and that your energy and presence is still very much here, even though you may have missed the live chat. I want to thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for commenting, thank you for the love and support, not only here, but on other platforms as well. Thank you to those that jumped over to support me on Patreon. I really appreciate that as well. And I just wanted to say that last week's Ascension Forecast proved to be pretty powerful, I would say. I think a lot of that is because we talked about Mother's Day. We talked about the mother wound. I think that many of us have a lot of wounds that we didn't even realize get kind of, I'm going to say, exploited on these capitalistic holidays. And I just wanted to thank you for the overwhelming love and support that you all gave to me, to the page, to the channel, to that forecast. It definitely felt like there were more people on board, really listening, really kind of resonating with those messages. And it just felt like we were making a comeback. And I say we because this is the community that we have built. And of course, as you know, YouTube has been absolutely just shit kicking my channel here. So it's been very hard to even get the normal, dozen or so type of comments on these videos. But we definitely exceeded that dozen or so comments on that last Ascension Forecast. And I want to thank you so much for being present, for being here, and for being a part of it. As for Patreon, I wanted to bring something up. There are so many beautiful, honest people out there. Apparently, Patreon isn't doing what it says it's supposed to be doing, meaning there are people that are paying subscribers that are unable to access that content, and there are subscribers that canceled their subscription, still being able to access that content. And I had a beautiful, honest soul reach out to me and let me know that Patreon was definitely not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and that is very disappointing to me. Because money. You all work hard for your money. I can't thank you enough for sharing some of that hard-earned money with me in support of the content that I put out there. But the last thing that I want is for you all not to be getting what it is that you're paying for. And that's very disappointing. And as you know, I haven't been, the biggest fan of YouTube or Patreon, but not really sure where else to go with this. But I just wanted to thank each and every single one of you for the love and support, regardless of which way you show it, whether it's through a subscription or just comments or just sharing, just liking. I have so many of you that are in a not so good financial state that constantly send me messages and literally apologize that you're unable to contribute monetarily. Please know that I never, ever expect, nor do I want you to be in a struggle financially and be handing that very little income over to me in any kind of way. There is, we have to understand this 3D realm, yes, is monetary currency, but the spiritual realm, which I live out of, is energetic currency. And the fact that you all just spend your energy with me and take the time to send me beautiful messages of love and support, that is just just as appreciative, if not a little bit more sometimes, than just seeing, monetary donations. So whichever way that you are able to contribute to supporting me, I just want to thank you so much, because it comes in many forms, and I want to appreciate every single freaking form that the love and support comes in. Speaking of that, if you are a Patreon member, of course, you should be able to access the moon guide for this new moon in Taurus. If you are not a Patreon subscriber, of course, you can download the moon guide from my website. But it definitely pays to be a Patreon subscriber. And of course, Gemini season e-guide will be released over the next day or so. I would like to have it done as soon as possible. But again, as you all are well aware, my procrastinating ass just can't seem to get anything done other than like 2 or 3 days ahead of when it needs to get done. So that is definitely coming at you. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I had a lot of people reach out as of late. It's always the way with the changing of the seasons and the changing of the tides, my booking calendar, not having any appointments available. Just want to remind you that most of the time, all my appointments get booked out within the very first week of the month. And of course, I wait until the final days of the end of the month to make my appointment calendar available first to my Patreon members. They always get first dibs on booking those appointments. And then, of course, I make it public. And those spots get snagged up pretty freaking quickly. So I have had more messages than normal. I think it's because we're coming out of eclipse season and everybody's like kind of jolted. They have no clue what to do with themselves or where to go from here or what to make out of some of the wild card situations that have taken place. That's okay. As I kind of said, I think last month to many of the people that reached out for readings, asking questions, it's like, you know what? Wait until eclipse season is over, and if you still are confused and need some guidance, then book a session. And so many people are shocked that I discourage them from booking a session because, I think we all have become a little bit too accustomed to having money grabbing people just want to suck you dry for every dollar that you have. Never, ever, ever will you find me in that situation. I want you first and foremost to learn how to trust yourself. Secondly, if you need some confirmation and validation from an outside source, I'd be happy to do that for you. However, eclipse season is not the greatest time to get reading sessions. And so I think the influx of messages on how to book an appointment with me, I think they're coming in just because eclipse season is now coming to a close, and now everything looks different, everything feels different, and people just want to know where to go from here. So I guess what I'm saying is please keep an eye on my booking calendar if you're interested in booking a session, because it will be active. It will be online here probably towards the end of this week. Again, I kind of leave it until the last final days of every month to open up those spots for the following month or the month ahead. And they tend to go pretty freaking quick. So I just wanted to put that out there because there's been a lot more people looking to book a session with me than normal. And as much as I'm grateful and appreciative of that, there are no appointments available until June. So I'm just going to leave that there. Okay, let's talk about the Ascension symptoms for this week. I also feel the need, and apologize if I am repeating myself, but I often have people say, how come I have the Ascension symptoms before they actually happen? And especially with the daily vibes that I put out, people are like, oh, well, that was my day yesterday. I don't feel like that today. Okay, so let's be clear about a couple of things. First of all, energy, the collective energy, yes, although happens and activates on a specific day with a specific, aspect or alignment, it encompasses more than just that day. And it depends on what planets we're talking about here. The inner planets, such as, Venus and Mars and Mercury, because they're inner planets, because they're closer to us, because they have a shorter orbit, they have more influence us than anything else. The outer planets, they're lower, they're slower, they have a much larger orbit, they're not as close to us at all, which means that the impact, the window, if you will, of their energies can span quite a distance on either side of the actual activation point. Even more than that, we're all different. We all are at different vibrations and frequencies. We're all at different points of our healing journey. We all have very different birth charts. And so when a lot of these aspects are taking place, yes, you can have some of the symptoms before I actually say that they should hit, of course, right? Depending on your chart, depending on your current healing path and journey, of course, you can tap into the subtle energies of unity consciousness long before the activation already takes place. Of course. And there are people that are like, oh, I read that and I don't feel that way at all. But yet they'll write me a couple of days later and say, you know what? I was 2 days late, but I finally got what you were saying. Again, that is due to the activations in your chart, due to the conduit of energy that you're actually opened up to being. Because again, if you're very early on this healing journey, you're all still filled with egoic programming and gunk. So it's going to take longer for those light codes to actually settle in and override your programming, which means that you're going to feel a delay in the ascension symptoms or the events that I depict in the daily vibes and in these forecasts. So whether you're early, on time, or late, you're not missing out on anything, okay? You're exactly where it is that you need to be. You're not missing out on a damn thing. You're getting all the goods, whether you're aware of it or not. You are on your own timeline while still being part of a collective timeline. And that's usually the reasoning why some of the symptoms can come early, why the symptoms can come late. And then there's some people who are so in alignment with the energies, so in the here and now, that they are pinging off with every daily vibe that I put out. Every aspect within hours, they're feeling it. And that's a beautiful thing as well. But you cannot be late. Okay, you cannot be late for anything. You're not missing out on anything. Just understand that we're all on the same train. It just, some of us are in different parts of the train, which means that some of us see the scenery before the tail end of the people in the train get to see it. Okay, but we're all going to see it. So I just felt the need to put that out there because I feel a lot of worry, a lot of fear, a lot of concern on people that aren't feeling what it is that they quote unquote think that they should be feeling. And they think that they're behind or that they're missing out on something or they're doing something wrong. You're perfect. You're fine. Just relax. Just be. That's the whole point. Just be and be part of the ride, which we all are. Okay, so I felt the need to say that. Let's talk about this freaking air bubble in the chest. It has been so freaking debilitating to me over this past week, and I think it's likely going to continue into the weekend. This is the heart chakra activations that we were talking about. And I know they can kind of develop and present in different forms, but man, is this one just getting on my freaking nerves. It is so in the heart space that it almost limits me in the amount of air that I'm going to be able to bring into my lungs. And of course, it is pinching a nerve in between my shoulder blades and in my neck. I'm constantly doing yoga, trying to stretch it out, trying to make myself burp. It's not working. Now, a lot of this is because we are kind of being shoved back into our meat suits. And so I do want you to keep that in the back of your mind. But it's also because this heart chakra is definitely going through a major change, a major transformation. Consider the fact that Venus, again, she's in Cancer energy, which is bringing up all the sensitivity, all the feels in our heart space. But also, she's in her rulership and she is kind of feeling the squeeze to wrap up the particular life lessons that she's meant to teach us before handing the baton, if you will, the crown, the throne, over to Mercury when we enter into Gemini season. So there is a lot of pressure in the heart space. There is a lot of pressure in the back, in the shoulder blades, in the neck space. And not to mention, Jupiter just moved into Taurus energy. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're stuffing our faces, whether we're hungry or not. Again, a downside of Jupiter being in Taurus energy for the collective, but especially if you have this taking place in the first house of self in your chart, is that we're going to pack on some pounds. We're going to put the weight on. And although many of us, you can't gain that much weight in just, a couple of days, we're definitely feeling the bloat. We're feeling the gas. We're feeling the cravings. We're feeling the weight, the heaviness in our physical bodies. We just want to curl up and just eat ourselves to death, to be quite honest with you. And of course, that's not going to help the bloating or the gas or the air bubble in the chest or the back pain or anything that comes with the digestive upset. So Whether you are just gorging yourself on good food or bad food, it doesn't even matter. Just the point of it is Taurus energy rules over the five senses, and we're looking for creature comforts. We're looking for pleasure. But of course, Jupiter can over exaggerate those things and make us a little bit overindulgent. And because we're kind of gluttons for punishment, we will eat ourselves into a food coma and then have the audacity to complain about the bloating and the gas and the pain and everything else. So we do have to kind of realize that we're in for a very long year of needing to be very structured and disciplined with our diet, with our foods, with our cravings, because we don't want to get this time next year when Jupiter moves out of Taurus energy for Gemini energy, we don't want to get to that place and then realize, oh my goodness, I have like 100 pounds that I need to lose before I can, do anything. We don't want that for ourselves. So moderation is always key. But I do feel that the eating thing is contributing to the overall bloat, the overall gas pain. And of course, if you push in right underneath your ribs and you're feeling any kind of discomfort whatsoever, that is your solar plexus chakra, which of course has been going through a recalibration throughout this whole eclipse season and retrograde season. But the solar plexus is our will. And because we are going through an identity shift, an identity change, our will is changing. Our desires are changing. Our passion, our excitement is changing. And who it is that we are is changing. And we can find that reverberatory effect or evidence, if you will, by the solar plexus discomfort, which of course is where this air bubble is, right underneath the ribs, really kind of the stomach and digestive area. It does not feel good. And I'm hoping that when we move into this week, it'll probably be further to the end of this week, that we see some of those particular ascension symptoms calm down. Now, keep in mind, at the end of this week, we have that first quarter moon taking place in Virgo energy. And Virgo energy tends to have a lot of stomach disruptions, digestive issues, mostly because there's a lot of anxiety and worry that comes with Virgo energy. And especially the worry of choosing the wrong thing or making the wrong decision or choosing the wrong path, or the whole perfection thing kind of kicks off with that Virgo energy. And it kind of makes a worry wart out of all of us and brings out the anxiety. And of course, anytime that we're in a temperamental state of emotion, that's going to hurt the guts because there's more nerves in our gut system than anything else. And we are definitely recalibrating and realigning in that area as well. There is a lot of back pain, and I would say that this back pain is contributed to by the air bubble, by the gas, by the whole situation going on. But there's also some pinched nerves, some tremors, some things that feel like we have to crack our back or stretch it out. We're just not feeling comfortable in our physical form. And again, reminder, we are being shoved back in our physical meat suits. And because we're going through a recalibration and a realignment, things are popping, things are cracking, things are kind of rigid. There's, some stiffness, there's some rigidity going on. We got to stretch it out, especially in our lower extremities. And a lot of that is because our physical bodies need to stay still right now. You may notice that if you cut your, I'm not saying physically cut yourself, but if you visually cut yourself from top to bottom type of thing, you will understand that there is one hemisphere of your body, upper or lower, that is more uncomfortable than the other. Just as if you were to draw a line from your head to your toe and divvy yourself up in two hemispheres from side to side, one side is kind of experiencing more discomfort than anything else. And then again, if you hemisphere yourself down the middle, from head to toe, but, kind of divvying up front from back, that's going to show you the discomfort from front to back as well. And of course, the back issues are past issues. The front issues are futuristic issues. Left versus right is feminine versus masculine, being receptive and intuitive versus aggressive and kind of physical in pursuit. And the upper part of our torso is connected to the upper chakras of consciousness, of our third eye, of information, of, our intuition, while the lower forms of our extremity root us to the earth, root us to the physical form, to the survival program that we have as human beings. So we're definitely feeling the division. And, as we move into Gemini season, the division will become more and more pronounced, because that's what Gemini season is division upon division upon division, in order for us to kind of weigh the pros and cons, the highs and lows, the black and white, and find ourselves in this comfy little, I'm going to say, gray middle ground area where we're going to explore how we want to operate from there. So we're definitely going to be feeling the discomfort. Now, a lot of the back pain and pinched nerves in our back is due to the energy not being able to flow up our spinal column the way that it would like. Again, our spinal column is Jacob's ladder. There is a Kundalini spirit that kind of gets seated in our sacral plexus. That's kind of why there's this pain in the hips. And that's kind of where the cutoff line is from the upper and lower extremities of our physical body. The energy blockage is because, we're different beings. We are not the same people that we were a month and a half ago. We are not in the same mindset. We're not in the same heart space. We're not even in the same physical body. Our bodies are changing. And as we discussed, and thank you so much for dropping me a comment in last week's Ascension Forecast about how many of y'all are actually noticing while looking in the mirror that your physical form, your physical image is 100% absolutely changing. We need to get to know ourselves again, and we need to kind of allow our physical bodies again to stay still, to rest while we do the processing in our mental plane and in our heart space. And that's why I think many of us could almost agree that the upper part of our body, chest space, head space, neck space, is going through the most tension, the most pressure system, I would say. It's not necessarily that we're having no pain or discomfort in our, knees and legs and lower extremities. It's just that they're kind of rigid, like we're not moving them very much. We're kind of in a standstill. And so, yeah, it can feel uncomfortable, but the rapid processing, the rapid changes taking place in our heart space and our head space is definitely making the upper realm of our physical body a little bit more tedious than the lower. Keep in mind that this is all about the heart and the head getting on the same page. And let me just break it down to you this way. So when we talk about the head space, we talk about Mercury. When we talk about the heart space, we talk about Venus. Well, we know where Venus and Mercury are at. Mercury, again, in Taurus energy still, and we have Venus in Cancer energy. Now, heads up, Venus will be moving into Leo energy, chasing the masculine divine energy Mars throughout the Leo energy. And heads up, Venus will be going retrograde in that Leo energy in July at 28 degrees. So there's a whole recalibration taking place in July. But again, if you listen to the new moon in Taurus forecast and you have the e-guide and you're doing all the work, you would know that whatever gets initiated under the new moon in Taurus cycle is going to be reworked, revisited when Venus goes retrograde in that Leo energy, the heart and soul of the zodiac, at that 28th degree that we just had the new moon in. Of course, it was in Taurus energy. That doesn't matter. The ending degrees, the critical crisis degrees, they connect the dots. They are the unfolding scenes of the same story. So the heart and the head, Venus and Mercury, they're really working together as we kind of prepare to enter into June. And it's very early on in June. Like we move into June, we have this Jupiter true node conjunction. That's a beautiful thing. Then we have a full moon in Sagittarius shortly after. That's a beautiful thing because that illuminates a new truth, a new mission, a new path, a new purpose. Then 2 days after that, Venus is going to enter into that Leo energy, that heart and soul. So this is kind of the time frame from now until then that our heart and head are communicating back and forth and trying to agree. Because once we kind of have that Venus energy move into Leo, it is all heart-led from there, baby. We are just bold and brave and courageous and just acting as a lion and kind of taking the rulership back over who and what we value, who and what makes us happy, where it is that we're excited and passionate and following new pursuits of passion and desire. So there's not going to be much, I'm going to say, thinking taking place. and I shouldn't really say that. We get a very small window where it's just heart-led, because exciting news, guys. Mercury will not only be clear of his post-shadow period entering into June, but Mercury takes its place of power in Gemini energy on the 11th, the same day that Pluto retrogrades back into Capricorn. Yes, that is right. That should be a doozy all in itself. But of course, I'm trying so hard not to give you a whole layout of what June is going to be. There will be a June energy forecast for that. But what I'm getting at is that this is kind of the last little chunk of time that we get to get our heart and our head in alignment before we go ahead and make some very dramatic, serious decisions to change things up here. And then we're going to hit that ground running in a totally different path and direction than where it is that we currently see ourselves going. So yeah, this week the body is still going to be heavy and weighted and slow. It needs to be, because we're not really supported in taking action. But the inner realm is going to be sped up and very, very much accelerating. Now that's going to mean a very different experience for the time warp that we've been in. Again, there is parts of us that are living in this fast forward sequence of time, while other parts of us, mostly the physical form, is at a standstill. And we will be experiencing the fast forward, the stop, the rewind, the stop, the fast forward, and then normal programming back and forth until we can find where our new vibration and frequency feels most comfortable operating in the new time matrix that is definitely being activated for the collective consciousness. So when we're talking about, everything looks different. Okay, so we started realizing that we're taking on a different image, a different physical form. But I think this week it's going to be very euphoric. When you get like you're here, you're in this moment, you're in reality. But everything kind of feels foreign. It feels weird, like something isn't right, but you can't put your finger on it. It's very, I'm not even going to say dreamlike, because it's not dreamlike. Normally in dreams, colors are more pronounced, or there's a different vibe, a different situation taking place altogether. It's not even dreamlike. It's literally like we woke up on a TV set that looks exactly like our real lives, but we know that there's an element of fakeness to it. Like, this can't be real. You know what I mean? And so we're going through this, like, everything looks different, everything feels different. What is going on here? The state of euphoria, the state of delusionment. Well, again, that's another reason why our physical bodies need to stand still while we process, bring in all of these information and details and sort through in our inner realms what it is that's actually going on here. And, not only is our daytime changing, our nighttime dreamscapes are changing as well. It almost feels like there's a new filter or something being used and activated in our dreamscape, in our astral realm. And granted, I mean, the topics and themes and storylines have definitely taken a different turn, I would say, compared to where it is that we were at under these very potent eclipse energies. My bad. Again, first day with my new tongue here. Anywho, it's very, very indicative of change on the other realms as well. When there is such an abrupt change in our dream state, we know that we've reached different levels of enlightenment, different levels of consciousness, different levels of experience based off of how weird not only our waking day seems to be, but how weird our dreamscape actually is. The physical repercussions or physical symptoms that I want to kind of touch on. When you wake up and you're from a really good sleep and you're still kind of sleepy and dozy, and, I'm not even talking about the crusties in your eyes. I'm literally talking about like the sleep fog. That's what I call it. Like the sleep fog that for me sometimes needs to hit like 2:00 before it even lifts. And some days it's there altogether. It feels like we are going to stay in a state of sleepiness. And I think this has been divinely scripted to keep us in a state of like sleepiness and grogginess and euphoria, just so that our, I'm going to call it egoic brains, don't freak out to all the changes taking place in the energetic field that, of course, we all leveled up on. And it's just going to feel like we're constantly rubbing our eyes, like we're constantly trying to focus. Like I'm not going to say that it feels like there's gunk in our eyes. It just feels like we haven't woken up yet. We could have been, alive and well and walking through our day for like hours. And there's still this element where it kind of feels like we're just waking up. And I think that's just because, again, we need to stay in an altered state of consciousness through this adjustment period, just because our outer realms and our inner realms are just changing at such an accelerated rate. Now, that's going to affect the eyes. I want to talk about this new sense of smell. Oh, man. There's a new smell in my house, and I don't know what it is. And I don't know where it's coming from. And it's not there all the time. It comes and goes. And I'm having the hardest time trying to figure out if it's an actual physical smell here in this physical realm, or if I'm smelling something that's coming from another dimension. And I know that sounds weird, but of course we are always in a time where there's interdimensional bleeds. And we have a sensory system that is only able to kind of make sense of the spectrum of light and sound and smell and touch and all of those sensual experiences that our physical body is able to interpret. And of course, we know that we're having an experience beyond our physical senses as well. But the smells are going to be super weird, super strange. I want you to just keep me informed on whether or not you know what I'm talking about here. And it's just like, it's not even like a pleasant smell. To me, the smell that I'm smelling smells like dirt. Like it smells like a towel that got left at the bottom of the barrel of the washer that is just like semi-moldy. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of smell, that kind of earthy, moldy, musty type of smell. But like I have nothing in my house that would give me that kind of smell. So I've been ripping and tearing, trying to say, okay, is this actually in my physical house, my physical environment, or is it coming from somewhere else? And the fact that it comes and goes and it doesn't stay the same has me kind of thinking that it's an interdimensional smell that is just getting on my freaking nerves, if I'm being honest with you. But we just went through a very important upgrade. We always go through an upgrade when we come out of eclipse season. And therefore, our physical sensory experience is going to change as well. And we're going to need a little bit of a time frame adjustment to kind of recalibrate our sensory input and output. And of course, our vision kind of being in the groggy, sleepy state, our smell being, at the top of its game as far as sniffers go. The physical form, of course, we just discovered is going to be very uncomfortable because we're shoved back in this meat suit. Hearing, again, we are hearing things differently. Even the normal ringing downloads that we receive, those are being received in a different way. So just pay attention to where your sensory system is kind of needing a change, needing a little bit of a break in adapting, because we're definitely going through it. There is still a lot of sinus congestion. So whether you think you have a cold or you have allergies or you just have periods in the run of the day where there's a lot of snot in your head but no snot coming out, or maybe your nose starts dripping water, or whatever the case, there's a lot of pressure in the head. There will continue to be a little bit of pressure in the head just because we're moving into an air energy with Gemini season kicking off. But there is a lot of pressure in the head, and a lot of that is because the third eye has also reached new levels of information and perception. And so that needs an adjustment period as well. I want you to pay attention whether or not maybe you have some pimples or outbreaks or rash or itchy spots on your forehead, because that's a good indicator that your third eye is going through it. But the sinus congestion is definitely putting a lot of pressure on our neck space. And again, that kind of ties into the energy blockages going through our spine. But it does feel like our neck is very stiff and we don't know which way to look, and up and down. And there's just a lot of discomfort there, and feels like we need to crack it. And, it can just kind of create a lot of tension in that head space and that neck space, add to the congestion, add to the ear popping, the ear congestion, the eye pressure as well. And let's not forget about this awful, funky film that comes back in our mouth space every now and then. Now, why is that? Well, we're moving into Gemini season. We are preparing for Mercury, Gemini's ruler, to clear his post-shadow period, which means that we have a lot to say, almost foaming at the mouth, so to speak. And we're not able to really put it into words as of yet. So there is a lot of energy being held in our mouth space. And therefore, this funky ass film is coming back to put sweaters on our teeth for a little bit. I'm hoping that this is short-lived, only, kind of taking place in the adjustment period of this week, because I, for one, do not feel like brushing my teeth more than 3 times a day just to get rid of invisible metaphysical signs and symptoms of an energy shift. I just do not want to do that, but that's what I feel like I have to do because I do not enjoy this funky film, these sweaters on my teeth. Lastly, what I think I'm going to leave you with is if you find yourself feeling kind of low and slow and coach bound and not sure whether you're getting sick or not, and even experiencing a low grade fever, that, my friend, is an ascension symptom. We are going to start seeing an acceleration of the sun popping off again now that we're out of eclipse season. The solar flares, the CMEs, are going to be pushed together very frequently. There's going to be back-to-back blasts, and then it's going to go silent. Then it's going to go back-to-back blasts, and then it's going to go silent. This is an acceleration of our DNA being activated now that we're in a new karmic chapter of coming out of that eclipse season. And may I just remind you, Gemini season is the gap between the eclipse season that we just came out of and the summer solstice, Cancer season, that pops off and resets the karma of the collective again. So this is why this particular point in the calendar is always a very busy time, because it's a time of change, time of experimentation, but it's also a pressurized time to choose, because we get reset with the solstice energy and we get to kind of choose a path, choose a plan, choose a destination, and then we get to work on building on that particular choice point when Cancer season and the summer solstice hits. So there is a lot of pressure, there is a lot of activity, there is a lot of crazy chaos taking place in our inner realms and soon in our exterior realms as well. So just take this week as a little bit of a breaking point. And I don't mean breakdown point. I mean, like, give us a break just to kind of adjust to these new energies, to this new path, and moving forward to new ideas, to new information. So guys, that is all that I have for you this week. Of course, I hope we all navigate these energies with as much grace, as much ease as possible. And you know what? It is just another chapter of us growing through what it is that we are going through. I can't thank you enough for being here, supporting myself, supporting every other individual here in this community. Y'all are just some beautiful souls reaching out and reminding everyone here that we are not alone. We are all on this crazy train together, and I, for one, am happy and privileged to be the crazy train conductor in this case. So with that being said, I send you nothing but love. I hope you have a beautiful week, and we'll talk to you soon.